Thank you very much. And we know that people with a disability experience inequality in a more acute way than anybody else, because they tell us that they are a long way from the kind of society in which they would like to live. And the facts on inequality speak for themselves, not to mention the extra cost for those living with a disability. There has been progress on equality for other people, LGBT people. We had the marriage equality referendum, but it is an unequal world for those who are living with a disability that was exacerbated by budgets in the austerity years. And I know Ireland took a different approach to ratification, the last country in the EU to ratify this. So I can understand how that failure to ratify is seen by those with a disability as indicating that they are of a lesser priority to successive governments. We've had a lot of talking with a lot of lip service. So I looked at the reactions of those with a disability, and Senator John Dolan from the Disability Federation welcomes it, but his statement also makes the point that we can't just be happy with ratification. We have to look at the implementation plan with a time frame for implementation, because the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to which Ireland is a party, our constitution, Bunreacht na hÉireann, includes a number of rights, yet those rights have not extended to those with a disability. So the ratification has to be the start of a process. It will mean planned, resourced implementation so that there will be real outcomes for people with a disability, and I think that has to be reflected in budgetary measures. And as we talk about proofing of budgets, gender proofing, equality proofing, I do think within equality proofing there should be a specific aspect on disability proofing, and I think that's something that our Oversight Budgetary Office could have a look at. And then the response from Inclusion Ireland. Those with an intellectual disability, I think, have very, very particular needs, and I want to acknowledge those who work in the intellectual disability area because of working with those challenges. They also welcome ratification, but they have concerns. There's a need for a clear timetable on implementation. You said yourself that it takes a whole government approach, so I think their call for a single focal point in the Department of the Taoiseach makes sense, because I think it would also show a real commitment to people with a disability. They call for the monitoring mechanism, because when it's ratified, the UN are going to come and monitor and examine it, and I do think we would like a very good report on that. And a way of bringing that about is an advisory monitoring committee of people with a disability, a committee that will be resourced and trained and supported. I do want to refer to the carers. We've heard so many harrowing stories from parents and other relatives on caring for someone with a disability, and there's also an awareness of the very, very significant savings to the governments because those with a disability are being cared for at home. And I'm very much struck that all of us here in this chamber, we don't know what kind of a disability, physical or intellectual, that we may be facing in years to come. Ireland played a key role in the Sustainable Development Goals. Disability is part of that, and as we want to bring equality about in the wider world, we could start here in Ireland with our commitments to end poverty for those with a disability. I hope this is going to mean an end to those protests that took place overnight outside the Dáil by people with a disability. I too remember the late Martin Naughton, but I particularly remember him in my Leaving Cert English class many, many years ago. But I also want to remember another voice, one for those with intellectual disability, with mental health issues, and that's the late John McCarthy from Cork of Mad Pride. I like the point you made, Minister, about the need to focus on ability and not disability. So, Minister, I do think it is a cause for you to celebrate. You sat through successive governments who failed to ratify and might still not be ratified if you had not been at Cabinet. But it is only one step taken, and there are many more steps to come. Okay.